number, that sort of thing, which is obviously publicly available online through their own Bexar County website. Once they got that info, apparently trolls, I don't know if we want to call them trolls or not, but somebody decided to put a threat out against them, and that's allegedly. And they're starting to charge auditors and cop watchers and activists for somebody else's, decision to make these threats.
Gotcha. Steve, Aron, you want to jump in?
Well, let Aron jump in. I definitely can save what I have to add towards the end. I'm sure Aron wants to jump in on this.
Okay.
You're
muted. You're muted, Aron.
I have nothing to do with that. That's on his end.
Sorry. As I said, I had dogs fighting rather vigorously around me. I had to mute my mic. Yeah. You said that the police don't know or don't seem to know when you can record. Do you know when you can and when you can't? Just for the general populace, when are you prohibited from recording, say, getting out your phone and recording something or someone?
Well, let's say, for example, you're driving around, you see an accident. You can stop anywhere side of the road as long as it's safe, and you can walk up to that scene and start recording, because that's documentation. You can do that. I would say you can record at any time as long as you're within the public area. The only time I would say you cannot record is when you're in a restricted area, something that's not readily accessible to the public, or if you're going onto private property. Like, I could say to you, if you wanted to come to my home, you can certainly record all you want in front of my driveway as long as you're out in the public street. It doesn't matter to me. But the moment somebody comes onto my property, which I pay for, which is my land, that's a decision that I have to make for myself if I want you there or not. I've seen too many auditors out there that get arrested for trespassing without knowing the lay of the land. They need to do their research as far as finding those public areas and versus the private areas. They need to really pay attention to the signage, things of that sort, to make sure that they're not going areas that are completely restricted. And we have a couple of activists right now that are actually are at home because they are not allowed to go out and do any of this stuff anymore, because they were found that they were going in restricted areas and they didn't know. There's no signage, there's no nothing, so they're trying to defend that situation.
Now,
so
with regard to being, let's say you're pulled over by a police officer and you're
Sure.
recording a police officer, or even if you're not in your car, you're out on the street, you're just out on the sidewalk and the police are there and you're recording. Is there ever a situation where the cops can demand that you shut off that phone?
No, not as long as you're on public area. There could be a crash right in front of my house and I can record from inside my house. And if they see me, if they come up to me and say, I can't record, I'm going to tell them that, no, you can't tell me to do that. I'm in my property. You need to do your business. I'm here to just basically record and document what's going on. A lot of the times police will justify their decisions to do what they want to do by using some kind of like, hey, maybe you shouldn't record because these guys feel sensitive about the situation. Maybe they feel embarrassed about what's going on and they just don't want that to be out there. I'm not here to record their embarrassment. I'm here to record the interaction between the police and the individual to make sure that nobody's rights are violated. And in case, because, they like to use that term in this day and age. In this day and age, you see a lot of cops doing something wrong. I can tell you there's a handful of videos that I've seen that good cops are doing good things, but there's a lot of things that are going wrong with cops, and you'll find those things a lot more than the good stuff.
Do you find that the what you just said, because you're right, you do hear that a lot. Almost every video, actually, you hear somebody say this day and age.
Right.
But do you consider that to be a reasonable explanation for why they are so caught up in trying to understand why they're doing it? Because often, and you can tell me if you agree with me or not, but where I see the problem is you have these auditors that will be filming in front of a police station, let's say, and the police will approach them and ask, what are you doing? And they either get like the silent treatment or they get the I don't answer questions response. And to me, that triggers in the mind of a police officer who is thinking like this may be something suspicious. And I know that suspicion is not a misdemeanor or a felony, so I've seen enough of the videos to know that too. But to me, if you're trying to prove a point that you can do these things in public by just answering I'm doing this to make sure that my First Amendment isn't infringed on, is a way to de-escalate anything that happens after that. And usually that doesn't happen because of them answering, well, I don't answer questions, which to me would trigger, whoa, okay, this may be something to this, if they weren't aware of like First Amendment auditors in the first place.
Well, I can tell you right now, a lot of the cops across the country already know that First Amendment auditors exist. They're starting to get savvy to this whole thing. I've talked to current officers whose names will not be given because of the whole thin blue line thing. That's a whole nother story, but they don't want to be outed because they believe in what we do. I think what you're trying to say is that if they come up and an individual like an auditor or cop watcher starts acting, I like to say stupid, by acting a certain way when a cop's asking a simple question like, hey, what are you up to? What are you doing? If they act a certain way, then they're going to get a specific kind of reaction to that. I don't believe in that. If a cop is coming up to me and says, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, how you doing, officer? I'm just here documenting the incident here. And, I'm just kind of making sure that everybody keeps their, is on the up and up, and that's it. That's why I'm here. I think most cops are going to be okay with that. And I've preached that so many times on my channel with other individuals saying that there's a good way of doing it, and then there's other ways of doing it. Is there a bad way of doing it? Probably. Is it going to land you in jail if you do it the wrong way? Most likely. But it's
not just jail. You don't want to antagonize cops. Oh no. I mean, I know white people who have been killed by cops on mistaken identity charges. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's dangerous. I mean, I'm at a loss as to, or I'm torn on how I feel about this whole thing, because I understand, unlike a lot of other people, I understand the intricacies of a lot of this, that there are intricacies in this. I understand that, for example, that the First Amendment, just because it's written in the Constitution doesn't mean that it's going to be defended, because we've seen an awful lot of unconstitutional laws passed by, hundreds of legislators at a time, that nobody paid attention to the fact that, this law we're passing right now violates the Constitution, and it obviously does. And it happens anyway. But at the same time, when you get people out who are antagonizing the cops, then you're certainly defeating your own purpose. And more than defeating your own purpose, you're inviting a personal calamity. Right. I can't tell you how many videos I've seen, and I mentioned jokingly earlier on in this podcast that I watch a lot of cat videos. Sadly, I've seen more, I think, atrocity videos than I have any cat videos. And things like, I can't tell you how many videos I've seen of homeless people lying in the street, asleep on the street, getting shot by police, sleeping while they're sleeping on the street. Or, somebody who's quadriplegic, somebody in a wheelchair getting shot by 5 cops at once. These kinds of things I've seen way too often.
My whole thing about all this, as far as the First Amendment auditing and the cop watching, is basically to educate the general public, to make them understand that they have their rights. They have rights. A lot of people, a lot of individuals, I can tell you from my town, because I live in a small town, it's called Hagerstown, Maryland. And I did a survey here, and I did about 100 people survey. And I asked, do you believe that filming in public is illegal? 90% do believe that filming in public is illegal. Wow. And that's not the case. That's quite high. And that's a very bad thing. People don't understand. And I did ask a follow-up question, like, do you think blogging is okay? Well, if my face is in your blog, you're going to have to ask for me permission to make sure you don't broadcast that. I mean, that's okay, but if you're in a public area, you don't have to do that. And I will tell you that the police in this area are actually not bad when it comes to filming in public. It's just that the individuals out here, they think otherwise. That's because of the way they've kind of grown up thinking that stuff is taboo or scary, or maybe they shouldn't do it.
More importantly, how often do the police understand?
It's not a lot. It's not a lot at all. It's kind of crazy. I watched, to answer the thing that you were talking about earlier, there was a video that I saw that I'm going to be doing a report on about an individual whose name let me kind of backtrack here. An officer was looking for a subject, and they had a specific name. They're looking for this guy. The officer did not have the picture of this guy. They're just looking for a black male. Well, they go over to the house.
They're always looking for a black male.
Unfortunately, they're going to this house, and they're looking for this guy, and apparently the cop thinks he knows what he looks like, so they go walk up to this guy, and they say, what's your name? And he gives them his name. I think you're the guy. Well, he's not the guy. They end
Ooh, I
up
saw this
tasing
video.
him. You know what I'm talking about? Then?
Yeah,
Okay,
I saw
so
this
they
video the other
tase
day.
the guy, they pulled him out of the car, and they end up finding out that it's not the guy, but the officer lied in the video saying that I've asked you for your identification more than once, which was not true. He never asked for the identification. He just automatically assumed that he was the guy.
Right.
And that's the problem that cops have. They have this like mentality of that they're this individual that can do whatever they want, and that's not the case. That's why these auditors.
The town I grew up in, we had notoriously bad police.
Mhm.
I remember Internal Affairs did a huge report on our police department in this town that I grew up in, where because of all of the abuse and also murder charges, they kept finding people out in the desert that it turned out had been killed by the cops.
Mhm.
And I remember somebody giving me a positive identification when I'm not even the guy. And I'm like beat up by 17 cops and forced to ride in the floorboards of a car with a boot on the back of my head.
What?
Yeah, while handcuffed.
What?
Yeah, and at some point, and this was when I was 17 years old, I remember, the cops go off to the other side of the street, and I press my ear against the glass, and I can hear them saying, we should have taken that guy out and shot him when we had a chance, and the other guy saying,
Wow.
we still can.
What the hell, Aron? Did you get set for that? That'd have been a cash-in payday right there.
Oh, I'm a 17-year-old kid. What the hell do I know?
Okay.
Mhm.
And I was living in a town where the police department had a year or so later, they'd cleared out everybody because they accidentally arrested an internal affairs guy
That's
and
great.
and whooped his ass on secret camera that they didn't know had been installed in their own police department.
That's insane.
Wow.
The
Yeah,
world's
but
crazy, man.
they were killing a bucket of people. And I remember crossing again as a teenager. I'm crossing a vacant lot, so there's no street lights. I'm in the dark, and I'm a metalhead, so I'm wearing all black, so nobody sees me. But I remember seeing these like 3 or 4 teenagers come out of a convenience store, and these police cars, 3 police cars pull up, and the cops are slamming these kids violently. I mean, beating the shit out of these kids.
Mhm.
And I can't believe I'm watching this horror, but I'm just glad they don't see me.
Yeah. Do you think that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm done. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you think that is? Could that be a reason why they're so resistant to being filmed? Because you see a lot of them now. They're wearing body cams, and
they get to turn the body cameras off
Right.
just before the homicide. How
Yeah,
is
that's
that
true.
permitted? How is that permissible?
And they
If you're
they
a
also know
cop,
how to cover them up just when they like.
if you're a cop and you've got a body camera and you turn it off and then somebody accidentally ends up dead,
that happened.
should you not be criminalized just for that? You turned your body cam off. Why the hell did you do that?
I'm just
shouldn't
going to
be
say
an excuse.
Baltimore. That's all I need to say is Baltimore. Baltimore has been the topic of bad, corrupt cops with their cameras being turned off. But what those, I'm going to just use it, man. Those idiots don't know is that those cameras record 30 seconds before and also 30 seconds after they press that button. And they did find a lot of these cops are actually planting guns. They're planting drugs. And that's not just one angle. There was one video that I featured where the Baltimore cops had 4 cops that actually planted the drugs on this individual's vehicle. One turned off the camera, the other one forgot to turn off the camera, and they watched him plant it right in the car.
happened in California too.
Yeah, and so they're running rampant.
There's a video of a police officer that I think what he did was he went to you see his hand go up and like grab where the body cam is, and I think he thought he turned it off, but what winds up happening is the cop reaches in his pocket, pulls out a little baggie of cocaine, sticks it in the guy's wallet, and closes it up and lays the wallet beside the guy. So then when the other police officers show up, he says, I'm detaining him for this. I haven't checked his wallet for an ID or anything like that. You want to do that? So the other officer goes through, picks it up, finds the baggie of cocaine, and he gets charged for that. But
I'm sorry to interject all these anecdotes, but I bought a city auction ex-police car, and I took it on a road trip, and I kept getting pulled over because people hated to see me driving around in a black and white police car with a spotlight and everything. So I got pulled over 6 times on this one road trip on suspicion of what they would never say.
yeah.
But every time they they tear my car apart because I've got long hair in the 80s and I'm driving a police car. So they have to tear my car apart looking for drugs.